Welcome to another edition of the News Review. In this edition, a human rights organization has denounced Facebook for shutting down PressTV's page, calling on the social media platform to reverse its decision. Skyline International for Human Rights said the move is in violation of the corporate human rights policies recently announced by Facebook. The group said the social media giant is assessing content based on political standards. Skyline International said Facebook has adopted the policies of the countries in which it has regional or main offices. It called on Facebook to abide by international freedom of opinion, expression, and publication rules for companies. Facebook shut down PressTV's account on Friday, accusing the Iranian news channel of failing to follow its community standards. Facebook has said that the move cannot be reversed. Now, to discuss that further, we're joined by Mr. Daniel F. Rivera, PhD, and the director of Skyline Foundation from Miami, and also Mustafa Khoshcheshm, journalist and political commentator, joining us live from Tehran. Let's begin with Mr. Rivera. If you could please shed more light on the different aspects of this type of shutdown. And let's not forget that this time the Facebook account, has been completely shut down. In previous incidents, it was suspended for a short time, but this time it's completely shut down.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me today. Good afternoon. Yes, it is. It was sort of shocking, no, to find that it was a final decision. That this decision cannot be appealed, and that in some ways they have not cut any road or any way to try to discuss or solve this issue with PressTV. It is not surprising, since Facebook since 2016 was heavily criticized for what happened in the U.S. elections. It seems like it was trying to be very sensitive to the content that some sponsor state media was doing, in the platform. And in that sense, the outlet was trying to review and check what some of these outlets were doing. But what we're seeing here is not this. This is, I believe, they're targeting specific outlets. We've seen that Iranian outlets have been affected, but also Russian and Chinese. And they argue that PressTV is breaking community rules. And when you review these community rules, you find it very hard to believe that PressTV, a news international outlet with a lot of experience, it is breaking any of these rules that are shown there. And for me, this is sort of deliberate attempt to suppress the voices of Iranian, Chinese, or Russian people, rather than really trying to put some order in the platform.
Thank you very much. Let's bring in Mr. Khoshcheshm now. What is your take, Mr. Khoshcheshm, on this kind of decision, like I said, permanently closing down the Facebook page of PressTV?
Hello, Gisu, and thanks for having me. Good evening. Well, I'm not much surprised. I don't know why, but it was quite a long time. I expected that Facebook would go the same way that Twitter, YouTube, and many others went. It's not just about Iran, but it's also about anyone who's having a different voice, like the CGTN of the Chinese, the Russia Today of Russia. They've run smear campaign against anyone that has a different voice, especially the alternative media. The so-called American values of democracy, human rights, expression of freedom, they are not important to the West. They have proved to be, for quite a long time, instruments to pave the ground for the United States to maintain its hegemonic rule over the large parts of the world. That's why if you just take a look at the United States ties with those countries like Saudi Arabia that have the darkest record of human rights and democracy, they rule the country like a tribe, and they, especially after the chopping up of Jamal Khashoggi, a journalist, they never punished the Saudis Not only under Donald Trump, they never punished the Saudi rulers, the MBS, the Crown Prince, de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, that has been in charge and issued the command for the butchering of Jamal Khashoggi under Biden administration. When you take a look at the United States media outlets, you come to realize that they are being controlled by the deep state, actually, one way or another, in order to shut down any different voice. That's the purpose. Democracy, human rights, freedom of expression are good as long as they serve the U.S. Goal of maintaining its hegemonic rule and enjoying more and more interests, legitimate or illegitimate interests throughout the world. Once they stand against the United States, they are not respected. Then the United States proves to be an irresponsible party that cares for no one and does the law of the jungle. Has the right to the United States, actually. So they go for shutting down PressTV Facebook page. On YouTube, the same thing happens. And they do not tolerate any different voice. It's not just about the outside world. The United States has long built up a glass wall around the United States. These social media outlets like Twitter and Facebook, they serve purpose, actually, for the people to communicate with each other away from the United States mainstream media rule over the world. But once the United States realized that this is undermining its unlawful and an unreal narration and narrative of realities on the ground, so they try and they've started trying hard to shut down, any opposing or different voice that comes through these media outlets in order to keep the Americans, the people inside the United States, away from the realities on the ground. So it's very important to note that why the United States is spending several hundreds of millions of dollars, roughly over $670 million each year, through its state media like the VOA or Radio Free Europe or Radio Liberty. In the Persian, it's called Radio Farda, in order to diffuse this narrative, this different narrative that comes from Iran, China, North Korea, as well as Russia. That's what they do, actually. They do not want to their people, the American people, as well as people, the audience abroad throughout the world, to hear a different narrative of realities that's different from what the United States says.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa Khoshcheshme and Mr. Daniel F. Rivera, PhD, and the director of Skyline Foundation. Thanks to both of you, gentlemen, and thanks to all of our viewers for following this edition of the News Review.